session Monday, January 16th, 2023. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Convening roll call for the fifth day, January 16th, 2023. Allemand. Allred. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Berger. Brown. Burkhart. Byron. Chadwick. Chestick. Clouston. Conrad. Crago. Davis. Eklund. Haraldson. Harshman. Heiner. Henderson. Hornock.
Excused.
Jennings. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Locke. Nyman. Newsom. Newsom.
Excused.
Nicholas. Nemec. Northrup. Oakley. Obermueller. O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Pendergraft. Penn. Provenza. Rodriguez Williams. Sherwood. Singh. Slagle. Smith. Stiff. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Trujillo. Walters. Ward. Washut. Western. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Zwanitzer Dan. Zwanitzer Dave. Speaker Summers.
Here.
Hornock. (61) present, 1 excused.
Thank you. Today we are joined by Reverend Rick Veit of St. Mark's Episcopal Church, who will do the prayer of the day. Please rise.
Good morning. I'd like to offer two prayers today. One is for Representative Sandy Newsom, who broke her leg in the last couple days, this past weekend. And then I'll offer a collect for those who influence public opinion. Let us pray. O God, in whom we live and move and have our being, we especially pray for Representative Sandy Newsom, that as we pray that she may find healing, that you may bring her back to full health soon. And for those who influence public opinion. Almighty God, you proclaim your truth in every age by many voices. Direct in our time, we pray, those who speak where many listen and write what many read, that they may do in their part in making the heart of this people wise, its mind sound, and its will righteous, especially on this day when we remember Martin Luther King Jr., to the honor and glory of your name and for the welfare of all people, especially in Wyoming. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The House will please come to order. I was reminded by a member of the body that former Representative Charles Pelkey is also fighting some health issues. And so as we think of people to keep in our prayers, let's keep former Representative Pelkey in our prayers as well. And the Courtesy Committee, so Chairman Ottman, the Courtesy Committee Chair. If I can get her attention over there. There she is. So Chairman Ottman, you might think about getting Representative Newsom a little something, you know, cards and stuff maybe signed, and you're working on it. All right, awesome. And let's see if I have any other, couple other notes. So in your mailbox, one, remember to get the mail out of your mailbox. It builds up, builds up, builds up. So even if you just put it in the garbage can, please clean it out. And you will now start to see blue bills coming into your box. Those are engrossed Senate files, and they'll go in your bottom drawer if you're getting paper copies. And we won't hear them obviously till crossover. And I guess with that, we got some privilege of the floor. And so Representative Pinn, privilege of the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce some constituents of mine from the Northern Arapaho tribe. Up here, we have Leslie Spoon Hunter and Allison Sage. Welcome.
Hey! Welcome to the House. Chairman Northrup,
Privilege of the floor.
please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce some people who have traveled across the state diagonally from that county with 2 1s on its license plate, number 1 in national parks and number 1 in rodeo. Please welcome Deb White and all of her students, Cody Youth for Justice.
Hey! Cody Youth for Justice, welcome to the House.
Mr. Speaker, privilege of the floor.
Oh, Representative Ottman, please.
Yes, so I have also a constituent from House District 34 around Riverton, Kelly Rutz.
Welcome to the House. Representative Haraldson,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege of the floor.
please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Up here on my right, on our south side, I've got Daryl Harris, one of my constituents from House District number 4. He wanted to come down today and just have a conversation with all of us and watch the proceedings. So, Daryl Harris.
Hey! Welcome to the House. Representative Bear,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege of the floor.
please.
Ladies and gentlemen, on your right here on the south side, we have today Jessie Rubino. She is the wife of Joseph Rubino, the Deputy Secretary of State.
Hey! Welcome to the House. Are there any other privileges of the floor? Not Journal Committee report.
Your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of Friday, January 13th, 2023 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Representatives Ward and Chestick.
Majority Whip Western, I think you're going to give a little introduction.
Mr. Speaker, privilege of the floor.
Please.
Thank you. Members, our doctor of the day is Dr. Chris Chambers from Sheridan. He's an excellent physician. He is deeply dedicated to medicine and to healing people. So let's give him a round of applause. And if you're sick, this is your guy.
Hey! Dr. Chamber, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you. Next, is there any other privileges? No? Okay. Next, we'll have introduction. We are at that order of business of introduction, reading, and reference of bills. The first bill for our consideration is House Bill 78.
House Bill 78, sponsored by Representative Stith.
First reading of the bill.
Protection of parental rights.
House Bill 78 is referred to Committee Number 1 Judiciary. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 90.
House Bill 90, sponsored by Representative Knapp.
First reading of the bill.
Sex offender registration requirements.
House Bill 90 is referred to Committee Number 1 Judiciary. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 126.
House Bill 126, sponsored by Representative Crago.
First reading of the bill.
Trespass, removal of trespassers.
House Bill 126 is referred to Committee Number 1 Judiciary. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 27.
House Bill 27, sponsored by School Facilities.
First reading of the bill.
School Facilities Consolidated Remediation Schedule.
House Bill 27 is referred to Committee Number 2 Appropriations. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 97.
House Bill 97, sponsored by Representative Stith.
First reading of the bill.
Chancery Court Jurisdiction Amendments.
House Bill 97 is referred to Committee Number 2 Appropriations. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 77.
House Bill 77, sponsored by Representative Harshman.
First reading of the bill.
School Finance Average Daily Membership.
House Bill 77 is referred to Committee Number 3 Revenue. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 111.
House Bill 111, sponsored by Representative Oakley.
First reading of the bill.
Endangering Children, fentanyl.
House Bill 111 is referred to Committee Number 3 Revenue. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 32.
House Bill 32, sponsored by Education.
First reading of the bill.
Education, mill levy amendments.
House Bill 32 is referred to Committee Number 4 Education. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 70.
House Bill 70, sponsored by Representative Neiman.
First reading of the bill.
Definition of home-based educational program.
House Bill 70 is referred to Committee Number 4 Education. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 137.
House Bill 137, sponsored by Representative Newsom.
First reading of the bill.
Minors, sale and purchase of cannabinoid prohibited.
House Bill 137 is referred to Committee Number 4 Education. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 88.
House Bill 88, sponsored by Representative Banks.
First reading of the bill.
Foreign ownership of agriculture land prohibited.
House Bill 88 is referred to Committee Number 5 Agriculture. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 106.
House Bill 106, sponsored by Representative Slagle.
First reading of the bill.
Eminent domain wind energy collector systems.
House Bill Number 106 is referred to Committee Number 5 Agriculture. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 123.
House Bill 123, sponsored by Representative Berger.
First reading of the bill.
Collection of antler or horns by residents and non-residents.
House Bill 123 is referred to Committee Number 6 Travel. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 85.
House Bill 85, sponsored by Blockchain.
First reading of the bill.
For-profit public benefit corporations.
House Bill 85 is referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 86.
House Bill 86, sponsored by Blockchain.
First reading of the bill.
Disclosure of private cryptographic keys.
House Bill 86 is referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 56.
House Bill 56, sponsored by Representative Brown.
First reading of the bill.
Purple Star Schools.
House Bill 56 is referred to Committee Number 8, Transportation. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 68.
House Bill 68, sponsored by Representative Henderson.
First reading of the bill.
School zone crosswalks.
House Bill 68 is referred to Committee Number 8, Transportation. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 94.
House Bill 94, sponsored by Representative Rodriguez Williams.
First reading of the bill.
Board of Parole, Wyoming Residency.
House Bill 94 is referred to Committee Number 9, Minerals. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 118.
House Bill 118, sponsored by Representative Newsom.
First reading of the bill.
Volunteer firefighter pension funding.
House Bill 118 is referred to Committee Number 9, Minerals. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 119.
House Bill 119, sponsored by Representative Penn.
First reading of the bill.
Medical prescriptions, off-label purposes.
House Bill 119 is referred to Committee Number 10, Labor. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 122.
House Bill 122, sponsored by Representative Berger.
First reading of the bill.
Anesthesiologist assistance licensing.
House Bill 122 is referred to Committee Number 10, Labor. Reports from standing committees.
House Bill 3, sponsored by corporations, state assessment and independent power producers, an act relating to ad valorem taxation. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Public Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred House Bill 3, State Assessment of Independent Power Producers, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Haroldson, Harshman, Knapp, Newsom, Olson, Ottman, Wiley, Yin. Representative Olson, Chairman. House Bill 42, sponsored by Transportation, Off-Road Recreational Vehicle Operation, an act relating to motor vehicles. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred House Bill 42, Off-Road Recreational Vehicle Operation, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Burkhart, Conrad, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Tarver, Western. Representative Burkhart, Chairman. House Bill 47, sponsored by corporations, Election Equipment Federal Certification, an act relating to elections. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom is referred House Bill 47, Election Equipment Federal Certification, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Haroldson, Harshman, Knapp, Newsom, Olson, Ottman, Wiley, Yin. Representative Olson, Chairman. House Bill 62, sponsored by Minerals, Open Banking, an act relating to banking. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom was referred House Bill 62, Open Banking, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Burkhart, Conrad, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Tarver, Western. Representative Burkhart, Chairman. House Bill 31, sponsored by Education, BOCES as local education agencies, an act relating to education. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4, Education, to whom is referred House Bill 31, BOCES as local education agencies, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Allred, Berger, Brown, Clauston, Lawley, Obermuller, Provenza. Excused, Representatives Andrew and Northrup. Representative Obermuller, Vice Chairman. House Bill 33, sponsored by Education. School Finance, Career Technical Education Grants, an act relating to school finance. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4, Education, to whom is referred House Bill 33, School Finance, Career Technical Education Grants, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Allred, Berger, Brown, Clauston, Lawley, Obermuller, Provenza. Excused, Representatives Andrew and Northrup. Representative Obermuller, Vice Chairman.
So then the next order of business is going to be to amend rules, adopt rules, permanent rules. And so first of all, I'm going to tell you how to find that. So if you go to the home page on your computer, if you go to the home page, and I believe down towards the bottom, there's a thing called Sessions Information. If anybody out there can see that, at least give me a head shake yes. Session Information. Okay, I think people are starting to find it. Good deal. There's 4 tabs in Session Information. If you go to the 4th tab, that is the rules. And there you'll find the proposed rules. Are people able to find those? I'm going to give people a chance to kind of catch up with this. And then the order of the business, the order of how this goes is the majority floor leader will make a motion. I'll say some things, then you'll see. So for example, you'll see one of the first ones that came out of House Rules is got my name because I'm chairman of House Rules. There'll be a member that will actually bring that rule. And so it'll be moved and explained. The body will have the opportunity to debate, excuse me, each member. It's like second and third reading. You have 2 opportunities to speak in debate. As we know, there's been a couple of these rules that's been, let's just say, kind of contentious. I'm going to really, I ask that the body, you can do whatever you want, but please don't divide those 2 rules. That's my request to the body. Obviously, you can do it if you want, but I would prefer it not happen. And with that, we are at that order of business, amending and adopting rules. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House rules and joint rules previously adopted as the temporary rules of the House of Representatives of the 66th Legislature be adopted, together with any amendments approved by the House as the permanent rules of the House of Representatives of the 67th Legislature.
You have heard the motion. Before voting on the motion to adopt the temporary rules as the permanent rules, the House will first consider any proposed amendments to the temporary rules. Amendments to the temporary rules require a majority vote for adoption. And so I believe Representative Zwanitzer, I believe you were going to bring the 0001 out of committee. So Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm pleased to move House Rule 1 for the committee, from the Rules Committee, made up of, I think, 13 of us on this floor. And as you'll see, if everybody found it, HR 0001, we're talking about 6.2, which is the order of bills on general file. Historically, the majority floor leader sets that schedule every day, as he's been reading off. And so what your Rules Committee has decided, you can read through, subsection B with me, that the majority floor leader does get to specify the order of bills listed, and then we are going to put a 2/3 vote of the elected members should a member want one of their bills or any bill put forward above the order that the majority floor leader lists. And so you'll see we have to, it's referred to as a special order in Masons. to overrule the will of the majority floor leader. And so you can see in the case where we would need that to happen, it does require a 2/3 vote on that special order to be on the same legislative day, or if it's made in the last day of general file. You'll also see there in Romanet 2 that a majority vote of the members present to sustain if the special order specifies the bill shall be considered in the committee of the whole on the same day or a succeeding legislative day. So what that means quickly, if any member wants to overturn the current order of bills on general file immediately or on the last day, it needs 2/3. Otherwise, it just needs a majority vote of the body to ensure that that bill comes up on the next day. And so for a lot of members who might not be familiar with this process, when we get 20, 30, 40, 60 bills on general file, and the majority floor leader gets to choose which order we hear them, there is some rules we need to put in place based on some things that have happened the past couple of years to give the majority floor leader kind of full power on that day's business. But as we know, a majority of this body always rules, and so they could put a bill up in that order the next day, should the will of this body prevail on this amendment. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What you're looking at, folks, is basically put in written form what the House rules have always understood to be basically the operation of the House. The first two, under Section B and then small Romanet I, those are what was perceived as the LSO's understanding of how operations were. The additional portion of this under the Romanet 2I is what was found to also be available through parliamentary procedure to allow for the moving of a bill from the general file, which, as you understand, the majority floor leader, as declared in the Legislative Procedures Manual, sets the order. They take the bills from the general file and they set the calendar for the next day. Well, in discussions, it was found that there was actually other ways to be able to adjust the general file or the calendar for the next day. If at a specific time, a member would then want to pull a bill out of the majority floor leader's general file desk and move it to the top of the agenda for the next day, a majority vote of the body would allow for that. And then they would be able to move that up. The majority floor leader would respect that, and that bill would be brought out first the next day. That was evidently something that was not understood by members of this body for some amount of time. In fact, everybody that I looked at or talked to, it was quite a revelation that that was even available. So in an effort to try to bring clarification and the understanding of what is going on, that's why that also section was placed on there. And that is what is up for discussion. So this is just codifying what is currently available, what we have known has been available, in addition to what we have evidently has been revealed has always been available but not recognized. So for any other discussion, I'd be glad to answer questions.
Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to be clear. This would also affect a request to lay back a bill one day.
Chairman Zwanitzer, you're the bringer of this for us. I would speak to that, but I'm not good.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe the request to lay back a bill is only on second or third reading, not in committee of the whole. And so this would not affect those provisions elsewhere in our rules.
Representative Stiff.
Mr. Speaker, I speak on and in support of this rule amendment. This codifies what has been the practice and the rule here in the chamber, and it preserves majority rule with respect to the general file, provided, however, that the majority floor leader on any given day has authority to set the order subject to only a 2/3 vote to change it on the same day. So because I think many of you may want to make sure that your ideas, the issues you campaigned on, get heard by the full body. I think this amendment allows for that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Oh, Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and against the amendment, this amendment does codify what we've been in practice before, except for Romanet number 2. Romanet number 2 is something that is newly discovered and truly hasn't been applied on this floor in the past. And so I think it's unwise for us to codify something that has not been in practice in the past. So I would urge a no vote as long as this Romanet number 2 is included. Thank you.
Chairman Harshman.
Okay, that'll teach me to get up from my seat. I wasn't planning on speaking on this, but I would encourage you to adopt this. I think this whole 2/3 majority thing is an issue that's very
Point of
important.
order.
What's your point?
Mr. Speaker, the representative failed to address the speaker.
Very good.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Didn't I say that? Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members,
Please.
I think, thank you. The issue on this deal is 2/3 or majority is really important to all of us. I mean, we're all duly elected. And it is not favored in democratic institutions around the world to have these super majorities. So we use them very sparingly. And I think to change our rules, that takes a 2/3. And that's really what this is. Once the majority floor leader sets the daily schedule, it keeps order in the chamber. And it should take 2/3 to change that order. But as far as going on to days down the schedule, there's a point where the body rules, right? We all have the same vote. And so, again, this is, I think, something that has been discovered. Even if we don't put this in rules, we're going to keep doing this. We'll call a rules committee, and the rules committee will probably vote to sustain this. So I think it clarifies our current practice. So I encourage your aye vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Anybody else for their first time? Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would respectfully disagree with the statement that this was recently discovered in terms of what our practice is. This is my 13th year, and I can recall at least 4 different times where this rule, using the majority to bring it up on the next day, has been used or at least brought to the floor. So it is the ongoing practice and the practice of the past. And just to clarify the proceedings. Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody? Representative Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this has been, I think the former speaker is correct, but 2 speakers ago, we do use 2/3 sparingly, and there's a reason that we do that. We kind of want to reflect on that and make it a difficult thing to change how quickly something moves forward, give it a little more gravitas to it. I disagree with the speaker a couple of times ago. Our Constitution does spell out the need and the use of 2/3 at times. And I think this is one that we ought to think through very well, and I would encourage a no vote.
Anybody else for the first time? Anybody for their second time? It's the bringer, Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess to answer one of the questions that was brought up, that it was used previously, and that very well may be so. The reason that I made the statement that this was something that was discovered is because of information that I received from LSO, and that the last time that this was done was to try to change the consent agenda on the last day. And that does require a 2/3, and that will continue to require a 2/3. As far as any information I've received from any other legislators and all the folks I spoke to up until then, it says that they had never seen or been relayed to me that there's ever been a bill that has been brought up for the next day in the proper time before the last day of session. So that was my understanding. That's what has been relayed to me, And through the LSO office and through their determination, this basically, based on this information, codifies that into our rules. And so just a little bit of clarification there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The bringer of the amendment, Representative Barry, for your second time? No? Chairman Zwanitzer, for your second time?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I think we all agree the majority floor leader exists for the purpose of structuring business of the day, right? The belief philosophically and our legislative system is that the majority floor leader represents the will of the majority at any given time in this body. But if there is a circumstance where 39 of us, or actually 40 of us, now that there's 62, want a bill heard that the majority floor leader might not, it should be the will of this body to at least be able to request that on a subsequent day to ensure that, just under 2/3 of us who may agree on an issue do want a bill heard. So I think this is a fair process that still conducts the orderly operations of business on a day-to-day schedule. You give the majority floor leader the deference they deserve to set policy on a day-to-day. But it also gives a will from the majority of this body saying, hey, we want a bill heard, and it's that important to our constituents that at least 31 of us will want that heard and can schedule it for a subsequent day, as long as it's not the last day of the session. So I think it's a good balance, it's historic practice, and it's time to just put it in our rules.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? All right. With that, Chief Clerk, please call the roll on what? It can. I want a roll call on it.
This is roll call on House Rule 1. Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clauston? Conrad? Craigo? Davis? Eklund? Henderson, or excuse me, Haroldson, sorry. Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strzok? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers?
Aye.
28 aye, 33 no, 1 excused.
So House Rule 0001 has failed. So the next rule for our consideration is 0002, Minority Floor Leader Yin.
Mr. Speaker, I move Amendment House Rule 002 to the rules of the House. So And if I may explain it, Mr. Speaker.
Please, go ahead.
So House Rules 002 proposal is 15-1, person submitted within the bar of the House. It's to amend this rule to no longer allow members of the news media to a table or area designated for them. So this is a rule where we had previously allowed the news media to a table. The table used to be in this back corner on the speaker's left. In my history, there hasn't ever been a member of the news media in that area, including when we were in the Jonah building. So I think the last time that it's actually happened was before we were in the Jonah building, before the renovations happened. So the reason for this change and the reason Rules Committee decided to bring you this change is because the post-pandemic environment has allowed everyone to both have video from the cameras around us as well as have streaming audio. And so the reason for having the news media in the actual bar of the House became less of a concern. The Senate had removed theirs several years ago. They had a concern overall with the members of the news media who were saying they were news media who weren't necessarily, who may not be considered necessarily news media. So this is just simple, clean up something that hasn't been used in several years, and I urge you to vote aye.
In general, we don't refer to the other body, at least not by name.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker.
Anybody else for their first time? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? House Rule 2 has passed. The next rule for our consideration is House Rule number 3. Let me see who's bringing that. House Rule number 3. I don't see an author on the bottom of that, so somebody's going to have to own it and go to the mic. At least on my copy, I don't have one.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. The chief clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all amendments have to be signed by the author and written. So there might be a way to go quickly fix this.
Chairman Zwanitzer, I think that's a good idea. I didn't know maybe if somebody else had a copy that had the name on it, but if there's not, does that copy have a name on it? What does it say online? What's it say online? Let's, Chief Clerk, go to online, let's see what it does. If it doesn't, we will get a corrected copy and we'll take this up. We'll stand at ease until we have some more amendments, so. Okay, let's just see what it says online. So Chief Clerk's gonna check it out. If it's got names online, then we're good.
Mr. Speaker?
Chairman Burkhart.
Mr. Speaker, I printed mine from online and it has Nyman and Crago as the
Okay,
sponsors.
thank you. I'm gonna confirm that with the Chief Clerk and then we'll move along. Chairman Burkhart, where online did you find that? At the same place I told everybody to go? Okay, there's the explanation. The corrected copy did not have a name on it, so we're going to go back for another corrected copy. So if the staff attorneys in the back are hearing that, we'll get a corrected copy on that. So with that, I think we'll just move along to House Rule 004. It doesn't seem to be connected to that, so I believe Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Rule number 4 to the House Rules of the 67th Legislature. And with that, I will give it an explanation.
Please.
Ladies and gentlemen, I brought a similar amendment 2 years ago, and it has to do with fiscal responsibility. 2 years ago, we were looking at grave deficits. Today, we're looking at a bountiful surplus. But the principle of fiscal responsibility still stands. This amendment in particular addresses when we work on the House Bill number 1, which is our budget, and the capital construction bill. And it applies a rule to ourselves, a restriction, if you will, that when those bills come out of the JAC committee, that we will go with whatever their maximum number is in those two bills. We will, if you will, draw a line in the sand. Therefore, if we need to make changes as a body, maybe we're more familiar with something than JAC was in our own area of expertise or in our own districts. We will have the latitude to bring additions to the budget bill and to the capital construction bill, as we always have. But we will put a restriction on ourselves that we will find an offset somewhere else in those bills so that we do not increase the aggregate total that came out of those committees. And so with that, I ask for your favorable vote on this amendment and stand for questions.
Vice Chair Larson, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the effort to be fiscally responsible, and I think that that's something that we all endeavor to do, but there's a practicality and there's a process problem that I have with the rule and would encourage you to be a no vote on that. So during the process, when we put the budget bill together, we have all of the agencies come and they present in detail the requests that they have and the rationale behind it. The public's involved in that. You can be involved in that. We adopt the budget bill. When it comes down here to the floor, there, in the process, then you will, with your good ideas or your intents, come in and reduce things in the budget bill or maybe add to in the budget bill. With this rule, if you had an increase that you wanted to put in agency 027 Department of Construction for the construction of something in the school facility and add 12 million, then you would be required to find that 12 million reduction someplace. So you might come into the Department of Health and reduce that in the comprehensive waiver program. What you're not hearing is a conversation and the impact that that would have by the agencies and the people that would impact. I think that the way we do it now, you can increase or decrease, but it leaves a playing field there that allows us not to really get this process tangled up into some unintended consequences. I think that it makes me really anxious. I do appreciate the need to try and stay fiscally responsible, but there's a process in the budget bill that this impedes and creates a problem with, and again, would encourage a no vote.
Minority Floor Leader Yin.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. So maybe the sponsors of the amendment can let me know, but I remember this amendment from previous sessions, and I think a lot of the discussion was around whether we wanted to empower the Appropriations Committee to decide how much we're allowed to spend out of the general fund and not the body. And I'm not sure why we would allow an appointed body by the Speaker, no offense to any member, why we would allow that body to have more power over how much we are allowed to spend as a legislature than we, the body itself. So I do urge you to vote down the amendment, but I would love to hear some more clarification from the sponsors.
Representative Haroldson, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First for a second.
Representative Ottman, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to say that this will ensure that the necessary functions of government are funded. If there's a concern that this might take away or reduce for less funding for necessary programs, that isn't the case. We should only be funding necessary government functions. This rule will force the body to examine our checkbook and ensure we are only funding necessities of government. Thank you.
Representative Heiner, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the body, I appreciate this discussion we're having here today. Concerning the JAC has tremendous responsibility to set that budget bill. So this amendment doesn't actually take that responsibility away from them. They can, as they listen to all these agencies, and they do a tremendous amount of work getting that budget bill into a form that they can bring to this body. So they have that latitude. This amendment would not decrease or increase that latitude. But what it does is once it gets onto the floor here, then we cannot add to that budget. We can take away from that budget bill, but we cannot add it without finding a way to pay for that difference. So what it does, as a legislature, we are in charge, we have the responsibility of the money of the state. It's a tremendous responsibility that each of us carry, and I hope we realize how important that is to our citizens. We need to be fiscally responsible. I see what's happening or could potentially happen this Thursday on a national level with the tremendous debt that we have as a nation. That did not start all at once. It started many years ago with a little piece of legislation just to borrow a little bit of money and change the budget just a little bit. What we're trying to do is ensure that we're fiscally responsible in the state of Wyoming for generations to come, that we don't dip into our savings when we don't have to, that when this budget bill comes to the body for us to discuss, we don't add to that budget bill. We may decrease it, but we don't add to it without finding a way to pay for it some other way. So let's be responsible now. Let's be responsible in years to come. It was only 2 years ago that we had a tremendous deficit, and we were trying to find money to keep the agencies in this good state going, to find ways to fund her. This year we have a little bit of extra money, but let's remember that these things cycle, and it's not too many years ago. I still feel the pain that we went through as we were trying to solve the fiscal problems of the state of Wyoming. So I urge a yes vote for this amendment, and thank you for your time.
Chairman Washut, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A couple things. Those of us who were in the body a couple years ago when COVID hit and minerals prices tanked, we saw a huge fluctuation in a matter of a couple weeks in terms of our financial outlook. And so as I understand it, and I hope that someone from the appropriators will answer this, is the budget is put together based upon the October CRAIG. And then we get it in January, and we get the January CRAIG. It seems to me that this requirement disallows us to take into account those changes that may have occurred. And I just want, a feel for whether that's accurate or not, but it seems like it really limits our ability as duly elected representatives of the people to take that fluctuation into account as we put forth the budget for the next year. And secondly, just a comment that, any comparison of our budget system to the national budget system is a little misplaced, because we do have that balanced budget requirement in our Constitution, and wouldn't we all love it if Congress had something similar? But Ours is a different process, and so I'd just like somebody to verify for me that I'm correct in terms of the October to January situation.
Representative Craigo for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just, I guess, back up a little bit for some of the new members who have not gone through voting on the budget yet. Anytime we increase the budget, the current rule is over $100,000, we have to vote on that. It requires an affirmative roll call vote from all of us to raise the amount. So it's not like this isn't going to happen anyways. Second point, for those of you who haven't been here, shortly you're going to understand how much information and power is concentrated, like it or not, in the Appropriations Committee. What this rule will do is concentrate that power even more. And I think the good representative from Teton County a little bit ago alluded to that. Essentially, we are removing power from this body to make decisions on the fly if we adopt this rule. For example, last session, budget session, I had a constituent come to me. It was one of my local government agencies, and we realized we had missed something in the budget. It was an oversight, simple oversight, but it was very important to one of my small districts back home. They said, we need to get a simple budget amendment in to do this. Actually, it was $70-some thousand. It wasn't a huge amendment, didn't even require a roll call vote. Under this rule, I would not have been able to get that passed because I would not have been able to find somewhere on the fly that quickly to find an equal amount to deduct in the budget. Just wouldn't have happened. I would have had a ton of pushback. It was a small amount, made a huge difference for a lot of our special districts, not just mine, but around the state. And under this rule, that wouldn't have happened. So I just would urge a no vote on this. We have the ability as this body to make these decisions on the fly. We vote on every one of these additions to the budget. When we raise the money amount within the budget expenditures, we will vote. Let's keep the power with us on the floor and not put more power in the committee.
Speaker Pro Tem Stith for your first time.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Just to address the question from the representative from District 36, the practice of putting the budget together has been that the committee meets in December using the October Consensus Revenue Estimating Group's estimate of what the revenues for the biennium are expected to be, but then that gets modified in early January. And just last week, we got, and you got too, the January Consensus Revenue Estimating Group report. This time, it turned out that there was only the modifications to the general fund were very small. Our budget, our surplus on the general fund side went from $912 million to $915 million, so not a significant change. But then the Joint Appropriations Committee met after that to have the so-called round robin, which is where the budget bill is fine-tuned. So to answer the question, it's my understanding that the Joint Appropriations Committee does have the January CRAIG at its disposal to fine-tune the budget bill before it comes to the floor. And I think the prior speaker saying that this rule change would actually shift power in favor of the Joint Appropriations Committee is, I think, accurate, and carries with it the disadvantage that it'd make it more difficult for members on the floor to amend the budget. Because, so for example, if you want to add something, then you'd have to say, well, we're not going to provide as much money for nursing home beds or something like that. So on and against.
Representative Pendergraft for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is indeed my first time, and it is an honor to be a part of this House. However, for the last many years, it has been my belief and contention, and I ran on this, that the government, including the government of Wyoming, is far too large, far too expensive, spends too much money. I have no fear whatsoever that we're going to put ourselves in a hole and starve out any agency by making some adjustments. I am sensitive to the arguments that have been made about perhaps tying our hands, but I still feel even with this amendment, which I support, and I urge your support, that we have plenty of room to maneuver. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Obermueller for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The idea of the fiscal responsibility, I think we all believe in that, but I just want to be very cautious about this approach and tying the hands of yourselves. Let me give you a specific example. In the year 2020, we left the legislature in March. We had passed a balanced budget. That was the COVID year. And in May, when they ran a new profile of the activity up to that point, that profile showed an $887 million loss. So the executive branch jumped into action, and they devised a plan of how we were going to deal with an $887 million loss. At the time, they thought we should probably split it between cuts and dipping into the rainy day account. That was the plan that was being developed. Then October came around and there was a brand new Craig. And the loss at that time was projected to be $455 million. So the governor came through with his budget. The JAC agreed with it. They came to the floor with a $455 million cut. Through the deliberation of this body, through lots of evidence, the body came to the conclusion that there were too many cuts there. We added back roughly $25–30 million of programs that just could not be cut. So the JAC didn't quite get it right. They aren't omniscient. The body has to have the latitude to make these choices from time to time. Don't tie your hands this way, even though the argument for fiscal responsibility is a good one. This one doesn't target that quite appropriately, so I would urge a no vote. Thank you.
Representative Rodriguez-Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First for a second.
Let's see, Chairman Nicholas, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've got about 4 or 5 different topics I want to talk about here today. First of all, you have to think about process. So, essentially what this does is, and I've been the chair of appropriations for 8 years, and I've been on the appropriations for 10 years. And you will find that at some point in time during this session or the next session that I will be your worst enemy, because it turns into a house against the appropriations on the various bills that come up and on expenditures and on ideas, and we're just in a unique position, and we take that very seriously, but that's just the nature of the beast, because it's our side, us against the house in a lot of different ways. It's also us against our folks down the hall. And so when we bring, for example, this supplemental budget to the floor, it's a product of compromise. And there are 7 of us, and there's 5 senators on the Joint Appropriations Committee. We have 7 votes, they have 5. What that means is that on individual amendments, adding or subtracting dollars, we have a majority vote. And so we can put in and we can take out, whereas the Senate cannot. And literally, this is a battle every year, and it seems to get more and more intense. And they've repeatedly in the rules tried to change that, but there's a reason for it. The same reason that on the committees you have, there are 9 House members and 5 or 7 senators, because we're the lower house, but we also have more authority, and we're a broader spectrum of events. They have more power because with the smaller committees, they can do more things and really stop legislation in its tracks a lot easier than we can. But the underlying point of this is the supplemental budget that you will see in a week and a half has a lot of compromises in it. And we intentionally compromised. In other words, we agreed to either not support something we wanted or to support something the Senate wanted. because we didn't want to cram down. In other words, we were being gentlemen about it and gentlewomen, to be fair, with the understanding that we were going to bring it on the House floor. So this particular amendment basically is taking all of the logic and the strategy and how we have cooperated with the Senate in order that we don't come to fisticuffs, and it turns it on its head. So I would submit, if you want to do this, wait till next year, because we'll play a different game in appropriations when we're playing with our good members down the hall. And because you would have a different supplemental budget if we were restricted to this. And that goes for the capital construction as well. So I'm just saying, just in practicalities, if you think this is the right thing to do, this isn't the time to do it, because we're already lost our positions on a lot of significant things. Next, let's just talk about timing. We based our supplemental budget on the January CREG that just came out. If we have a recession that kicks in 2 weeks, stock market drops 1,000 points, all of a sudden we're going to need to do something different. And this will hamstring our ability and your ability to do something. But to me, the most important thing is, frankly, I think this rule is unconstitutional. I really do. What this is doing is saying, appropriations, you're going to decide. That's all the money we're going to spend. And if you want to bring an amendment for your constituents or for any group, you're saying the only way you can do it is you got to take money out of someone else's pocket. So you take it out of the Department of Health, but we're capping the budget. And when in the world would we say, limit each one of you that you can't do something without increasing the budget? I mean, this is exactly what was going on in the US Congress nationally just in the last week or two. And there, 4 people get to decide what's in the budget, nobody else. And the rule changes that they just accomplished was to open it up so the full, ordinary members of the US Congress can add or subtract to the budget and have it part of the process. If you want to put all that power on appropriations, I'm back of my mind, I'm going, well, that's not all that bad. But trust me, I just think that why would we hamstring, for the purpose of a political philosophy that let's not spend more. So the ones that want to keep the cost down, they don't want the rest of you to decide. And frankly, I don't think you can do it. I think it's unconstitutional. I call for a rules committee because I honestly believe that this particular rule change is contrary to our Constitution.
Rules Committee has been called, so will the Rules Committee come to the front of the room? And Chairman Nicholas, you better bring your Constitution and where it's unconstitutional. So I'm going to call everybody back to order. We're doing a little rule research. So the Rules Committee and I would call it a weak vote, disagreed with the bringer of the point of order, or basically the motion that it was unconstitutional. And so what we're trying to decide, because that bringer was questioning whether he could request a table to further research this, and we're deciding whether the motion to table is even in order. So stand at ease. So if somebody wants to move to table that, it is an undebatable motion. It would need to be to a time specific. It is a majority vote to table this rule. And it's undebatable.
Mr. Speaker,
Chairman Nicholas.
I would move to table until 2 p.m.
All right. Roll call. So to clarify, the motion is whether to table this rule until 2 p.m. Technology.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrop? Oakley? Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez-Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stiff? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Swan Sir Dan? Swan Sir Dave? Speaker Summers?
Aye.
Are there any changes? Vote closed, 37 aye, 24 no, 1 excused.
House Rule 4 has been tabled until 2 p.m. So what we'll do is we'll move on to House Rule 5, and then we'll jump back to the corrected copy of House Rule 3. So House Rule 5, Chairman Harshman, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would move House Rule 5. It's Rule 15-5. The rule to be amended into the rules of the House. Mr. Chairman and members, you can see the current language. We don't allow cell phones for conversations inside the bar in the chamber. And I would like to add additionally to that within, during third reading, and we're going to experience third reading for 29 of you today, and I think they're all pretty easy bills. But we'll be here sometimes early in the morning, sometimes late, but when you sit here and then, one representative goes first and another goes last, but the rest of us are somewhere in the middle. And I just think when you hear those ayes and noes and you settle in, and there's a lot of tough votes we're gonna have to take. It's part of the job, right? And you settle in that chair. And I just think this thing out in front of you, up here during third reading, somebody texting you, I just think we used to just have paper, no computers. And it was just us inside the bar of the House. And now everybody's watching on TV and they're texting you. And I just think it's a period of, instead of releasing dopamine and having this thing buzzing and shooting in our face, that we can kind of settle. And when my name's called, I can say aye or no. And it's you, it's us, right? The 62 idea machines that are all duly elected, right? So that's why I bring it, we take a pause because third reading is key. That's when this is going to be a law, right? That it's going to affect people's lives. So that's why I bring it, Mr. Speaker. I'm trying to return a little the way it kind of used to be, and maybe that's out of the bag forever. I don't know, but this is my last chance at it. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, and appreciate your consideration, members.
Representative Jennings for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And while I may share the sentiment of the former speaker, I look at this a little bit differently. I work for 10,000 people back there, and on this floor, this is my office. And I have the right to talk to anybody that I want or visit with somebody. And so while I try and turn mine down or off or put it in the desk drawer or leave it at home or drop it in the river if I'm lucky. But I don't think that this is something where we want to regulate the workplace for 10,000 people that we represent, so I'll be a no.
Representative Alamán.
Mr. Speaker, I am willing to talk to my constituents at midnight if they wake me up. Why would I not be willing to take their call in the middle of the day or a text from them? Thank you.
Representative Heiner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will be the first to admit that I'm not very knowledgeable on a lot of subjects. I rely on a lot of people that are subject matter experts to help me, and so I don't look totally stupid all of the time. So I get information from others. That's why we operate as a body, because there are people in here a lot smarter than I am. We each have our life skills, our life experiences that contributes to that knowledge base. And I rely on you to help me. And so through text messages, I don't think it's disruptive to this body as we're sending text messages to each other. But if we were to put it in rules that we couldn't use our cell phones, we would also need to put it in rules that we have to shut down our computers during third reading, because we receive emails as well, and we're doing research. So How far are we going to take this? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Rodriguez Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we're all adults here. I've never seen anybody carry on a full-on conversation on their cell phone on the floor. We take those conversations off the floor. Is texting done? Absolutely. Why? Because there's amendments that are constantly being posted online. There's lobbyists and there's the people that are communicating with us, and they use different methods. Some, because of disabilities, use text, some email, some chat. There's all sorts of communication features that we use. And I think it's important that they're not limited for our constituents, no matter what reading we're on. This isn't the classroom. This is the body. And I'm in opposition of this amendment. Thank you.
Representative Hornock for your first time.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Let's not say it doesn't happen, but I think by the end of session, I'll probably have every single one of your cell phones, your contacts in my cell phone. And we can use that as a tool during this session. It's kind of distracted to get up and walk around and go talk to somebody. It's very easy to text somebody. We added 2 new members. This body added 2 new members. The House shrunk. We've got members among us that would have a very, very difficult time getting up and walking and going and talking to somebody. So that would eliminate their ability to communicate as we're in process. So I don't want to see this taken away. It seems a little bit antiquated.
Representative Banks for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a bit of an issue with the proposal. I and probably many of you campaigned on having the ability for our constituents to reach out to us at any time. And if I'm sitting here, I'd like to have that line back home to somebody who has a particular interest in something we're proposing or debating on the floor. And restricting that restricts their ability to reach me on a very important vote to them. So I think in the aspect of being transparent and keeping the connection line clear and open to our constituents back home who rely on us to cast a vote in matters that are very important and crucial to them and different industries that they represent. I can't support this proposal. Thank you.
Chairman Washut for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, when I look through all these hallways lined with all these pictures, it dawns on me that those folks took a lot of third reading votes without getting text messages or emails or anything else. They were the elected representatives of the people. And in a republic, those elected representatives exercise judgment on behalf of the people that elected them. And somehow they managed to discern what was the right thing to do on a particular bill during third reading without receiving text messages at the last possible moment from constituents back home. And I love it when I get information from my constituents that helps me understand the issues at hand. But there's a time for that, and I think it's before third reading. And I understand that sometimes we get third reading amendments, but when we get ready, especially when we get ready to vote on third reading, I agree with the sentiment of this rule proposal, this amendment, that we not be on our phones, that we stand tall and make our votes. And I don't think that that impacts our ability to receive information and guidance from our constituents. You know, these bills have been proposed for days or weeks before we get to third reading. There's lots of opportunity for us to hear what people have to say. And I don't make up my mind based upon what was the last thing I heard from somebody. You know, I try to review and analyze these bills before they get to third reading and make my decision. And I don't think I need a text message at the last possible minute to help me on my way, so I'll be in favor.
Representative Ward for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I strongly urge a no vote on this. I bristle at the attempt to restrict my First Amendment rights. And as a reminder, First Amendment includes freedom of assembly and freedom of speech. If I want to communicate with any one of my constituents or anyone on this floor, as long as I'm not disrupting the body, I don't see the problem. Thank you.
Representative Ottman for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And while I appreciate all of the good debate, I just wanted to add to it. In the past couple years, we have experienced technological advances that I could have never imagined. We're able to be seen by people at home right now, and we can be on committee meetings and testify, and people can do that right then and there. If there's a bill that comes up or an amendment where one of my county electeds needs to get a hold of me, they can text me right then. I've told most of the people in my district, please don't call me. I can't talk. Don't send me a 10-page email because that's too much. But if you have a comment, text me and text me quickly. Last year, I had the opportunity to experience one of our members get up and say, oh, you just got a bill in your email, and oh, there's an amendment to it, and it was a substitute bill. I was floored. I had no idea what to look at, how to listen to people or whatever. Thankfully, a few people helped me. So I would say, you know, we should be able to use that. If it's too much, don't use it. But if it helps to be a better representative and to be more knowledgeable, then I think we should be able to do it. So please vote no on this. Thank you.
Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess the thought going through my mind while all this discussion is, which one of y'all are going to enforce this? I got one, I got one interested. I mean, to me, when you look at this, if I saw a representative next to me getting a text at an inopportune third reading moment, I ain't going to snitch on him. I'm not going to be the police running around here saying you can or can't do that. I mean, we're trying to make this body work together, and all I can see this is something that is a perfect opportunity for people to say, hey, he was texting, he was talking to somebody when he should have been voting. Well, he wasn't going to vote right then, but it was during third reading. I don't think we need to be looking for ways to try to create stress or strain between the members. I think we need to trust each other to be mature enough to be able to take messages when it's the appropriate time. And quite honestly, if you look at this, third reading is critical, but first reading, committee of the whole, that third reading bill will never make it if it doesn't get through first reading. It's dead right there. Should you be talking when you should be paying attention to the merits of the bill, getting feedback? I think by third reading, you've got your mind made up. And if you need to take some more information from somebody at that time, you should have the right. I trust you all to be grown-ups and to handle your handheld devices maturely. So I would stand against this.
Thank you. Just a reminder, really, just for the new members, we don't ask questions of the body and have hands raised and answer. That's not a good practice to start going down. So are there anybody else for your first time? Representative Penn, that's my height challenged side. Just remember that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to say that the first word that came to my mind with this is micromanage. As has been testified before, we're adults here. We're elected representatives of the state of Wyoming. And rather than, if there is a problem, rather than creating a rule to apply to the entire body that potentially could hamstring our ability to interact with and communicate with our constituents, how about we just address the issue on a one-on-one basis? If the good majority floor leader has a hard time making his votes because he's always on his phone, then maybe he needs to be addressed and I think that's more appropriate rather than creating a rule to apply to the entire body.
Representative, is anybody at the back mic, or is that just all standing there for fun? Representative Larson.
So, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Speaker, maybe just a little point of order if I may, but, you know, may I?
Point of order.
I think we just really need to be careful that we're not calling out people by their position and telling what they can and can't do. For those of you that are new, you need to be careful about that. And we're patient and we'll get there, but just, you know, as we move along, be careful that you're not being so specific as to, for the rest of us to really identify who that individual is. Then, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
So Representative Larson, we do recognize people that are majority floor leader, minority floor leader. You know, we do have to be careful how we reference those comments to those individuals, but surely that is a legitimate reference to an individual, Speaker Pro Tem, minority floor leader, House District Number. We just have to be careful how we direct those comments to those individuals, so it's not derogatory to the individual. So, Mr.
Agreed.
Representative Larson, do you have comments on the?
I do. Just really love this proposed rule, and how do we do it? We just put a trash can at the front here when we come in, deposit your phones. I'm just coming from and I know I'm being a little facetious, and I apologize. I'm just not a fan of cell phones. People get mad because I don't return their texts, and my fat fingers get in the road. But I also think that there's maybe a little confusion on what the intent. And I think the good chairman of Judiciary's comments really reinforce this isn't taking away your ability to communicate. This is just, it really does provide an opportunity on third reading for those of us who have gone through some third readings, understand that there really is a focus. And I, for one, have not always made my mind up by third reading. I probably 40% of the time, I'm still trying to figure it out on third reading. And so that conversation, I just think that when we settle in on that third reading to make that final vote, not being distracted is an important thing to consider. I thought the comment by one of the previous speakers, Mr. Speaker, on turning off the computers, I'll vote for that. I think that would be a good thing. That doesn't bother me either, but I like the bill, and I don't think that there's an attempt here to try to stifle anybody's first rights or any other rights, or to prohibit you from trying to visit with your constituents. But as you learn this process, that third reading is a pretty important time, and I know that we're going to decide this as a group. I sure would like to see that, because there are times that it gets a little distracting on third reading amendment with cell phone usage. So I support it. Thanks to Breener for bringing it.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time? Bringer?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, just to be clear, there are no verbal conversations. That's our rule we've adopted. I think there has been in the past, before COVID, we used to have a drawer full of papers, all you newer members, and we had session staff that took really good care of us, and everything was organized each day, and those days are gone. You don't have paper copies of anything now. We got these big monitors, and we're trying to shift stuff electronically, and that's fine. I mean, we're not going back to the days of the spittoons on the desk and members smoking here and handwriting amendments. But I think I don't know, I just think when you sit in this room and as the sun kind of goes from the west to the east and it changes here throughout the afternoon, there's something happens to you. And it's particularly these really crucial third reading votes. And so that's all it is. Obviously, we can't talk on our phone. It's not about limiting somebody's rights. That's not really what I'm doing. It's just really about the beauty of this process and us in this room. So with that, Mr. Speaker, thank you. Appreciate the great debate. Thank you.
So all those in favor of House Rule number 5, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The noes have it. House Rule 5 has failed to pass. Mr. Majority Floor Leader?
Mr. Speaker, I move the House stand in recess until 2 p.m.
All right, stand in recess. Oh, committee announcements. Chairman Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 4, Education, will meet in E03. That's where we were last time at 12:15-ish. Go get yourself something to eat on the nice pharma people down there. And we're going to have House Bill 30, Wyoming Tomorrow Scholarship Program amendments, and House Bill 109, Wyoming Works for Tomorrow. Thank you.
Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 9, Minerals, will meet at 8 o'clock on Wednesday morning to consider 2 bills, House Bill 43, Winter Road Closures, House Bill 67, license plate decals, and other bills as they may be assigned before then.
Chairman Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your House Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions Committee is meeting right now upon noon recess in number 5 on the east side of the Capitol Extension to hear and consider 3 bills: House Bill 73, the annexation vote requirement; House Bill 55, election ballot order and party affiliation; and as time permits, House Bill 49, municipal nonpartisan ranked choice elections. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Vice Chair Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your committee number 2, Appropriations, will be meeting after the committee members have a chance to grab something to eat real quick and bring it up there to nibble on, where we will hear re-referrals, House Bill 4, Medicaid 12-month postpartum coverage, 11, State Parks Ranger retirement, and the re-referred House Bill 65 on the 988 suicide prevention.
All right. With that, the House will stand in recess until 2 p.m.